You're watching Camnet News. My name is Sharon Kalimbola. The top stories on our desk this evening. KCM liquidator MILINGO LUNGU refuses to meet the new mines minister. The Patriotic Front accuses the police of unfair treatment against its members. CHISHIMBA KAMBWILI back in court barely a week after being acquitted. In international news, Hotel Rwanda hero given 25 years sentence in a terrorism case. And in sports news, the national deaf football team's failure to attend the first ever international sporting activity regrettable.
The Camnet October Conference is fast approaching. To participate in the forthcoming conference, you're required to book your seat by paying 750 kwacha per person per day. Date 1st and 2nd October 2021. Venue the Healing Word Ministries International in Ibex Hill. Guest speakers include Professor Reda, Professor Munkumba, Mr. Nkuruma Kalaluka, Dr. Musonda, Dr. Sitima, Anthony from USA, Dr. Mwale, Honorable Bob Sichinga, Elias Bondela, and your hosts, Pastors Victoria and Moses Chiluba.
You can also participate via Zoom at 300 kwacha per day.
Make your payments through mobile money for MTN 096 296 5883, for Airtel 097 975 3010. Our banking details are 913 000 182 5325, Stanbic Bank, Kablonga branch.
For those living abroad, make payments via World Remit. The deadline for payments will be 28 September 2021. Any late payment made after 28 September will attract a penalty fee of 200 kwacha per person.
This is Camnet News. Once again, thank you for joining us. Unscrupulous people have gone on rampage in Lusaka's Mutendere compound, stealing cables connecting electricity to people's homes. Speaking to Camnet TV, the residents narrate that the cables from about 4 houses have been cut so far in a period of 48 hours, demanding increased police patrol. Meanwhile, ZESCO Public Relations Manager Hazel Zulu says the power utility company will work with law enforcement agencies to ensure that perpetrators are brought to book.
The continued indiscriminate cutting of electricity cables by unknown people has dismayed residents of Mutendere compound in Lusaka. This has been ongoing for many years, as the cables are said to be fetching close to 12,000 kwacha on the market, as they are made from copper rods. About 4 houses have been affected in Mutendere compound within the last 48 hours, leaving them in the dark. This has also left live wires hanging, posing as a threat to people's lives. Barely a week ago, the life of a 7-year-old boy was lost in the area after he touched a live wire which was left hanging. Residents have called on police to increase surveillance.
Problem until nayo nyama kebwa yavuta kubewa kuno. Mtendere ni kwa mbili kwa nekwa bewa, so hapa wanachokotijuila mazo. So tina problem ya malaiti tibema light. Ndiyo mafridge sikungo onongeka. Then wakatikila kwa makebo at least wazipita pitamu kutisheki ngila kwa shuka ya vuta.
Mutendere Ward 38 Councillor Mr. Boniface Chiveka has also added his voice.
But there are other houses, they haven't removed, they are still hanging, whereby we are likely to have an accident from there if it is not going to be removed quickly, because there are people, drunkards, we have kids, we have those who just do loitering around at night, they may get affected like that. So I'm appealing to ZESCO to move in and remove those remaining service cables which are hanging.
Meanwhile, ZESCO Public Relations Manager Ms. Hazel Zulu had this to say.
I also just want to warn the perpetrators of this vice that ZESCO is alert. We are working closely with other stakeholders in, security entities to ensure that we nip this. So we'll definitely catch up with them.
The residents have called for quick action from the police, stating that they can hardly sleep as they feel they need to protect the cables connecting electricity to their homes. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Still in Mutendere, where some residents this afternoon around 15 hours were attacked by a mob for putting on Patriotic Front regalia, hence fearing for their lives. In an interview with Camnet TV, the victims have revealed how the attackers undressed them for putting on the regalia.
Some residents of Mutendere were this afternoon at 15 hours attacked by a mob for putting on PF regalia, hence fearing for their lives. In an interview with Camnet News, the victims have revealed how the attackers undressed them for putting on the regalia. They have since appealed for peace to prevail following the declaration made by the president, Hakainde Hichilema, that terrorism should completely stop. A woman found putting on a PF chitenge said she's frightened to move freely as she could be the next victim.
My fiancé fait valer tabac because tu arrives à voter là, tu arrives à faire ma vote, tu arrives à PF, tu arrives à changer team, tu arrives à UPNG. One Zambia, one nation.
Zambia should continue to remain a peaceful nation. Blessings Chakwila, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Patriotic Front Vice President Given Luwinda has challenged the United Party for National Development to prove their commitment to ending political violence by handing over the perpetrators to the police. Addressing the media Monday, Mr. Luwinda says it is not logical that perpetrators who were dressed in UPND regalia in a recent video circulating on social media have not yet been arrested. Meanwhile, UPND Deputy Secretary General in charge of politics, Patrick Mcheleka, has disassociated the UPND from the video, alleging that it was stage managed by the Patriotic Front in order to dent the image of the ruling party.
The Patriotic Front PF party has described the Thanksgiving service for peaceful elections that was held on Sunday as a sham, alleging that it was a political event where the United Party for National Development UPND were playing blame games on the PF and not a Christian event as it was supposed to be. Addressing the media Monday, PF Vice President Mr. Given Luwinda has challenged the UPND to prove to the country that they do not condone violence by ensuring that the political cadres practicing this vice are brought to book. A video has gone viral on social media recently showing alleged UPND cadres whipping a citizen said to be a PF sympathizer.
Zambians are first of all Zambians before they become members of political parties. And after all, how do you know that all PF members voted against you? How would you possibly know? We in the Patriotic Front are still doing our own introspection because we also suspect that some of the members of the PF may have voted against us. And how do you yourself know that whoever is a member of the PF is against you?
Meanwhile, victim of the attack, Mr. Timothy Chikasa, has spoken out on the incident.
kuzingarume kuria nakwena bachirikachi bari muma futi bamboisha futi bantora kuria kwakanyama kuria kufuma chechi kuyo kutira kuria kuspiri nakwena bari muma.
In airing his views, UPND Deputy Secretary General in charge of politics, Mr. Patrick Mcheleka, has distanced the party from the cadres in the video, stating that they do not belong to the UPND.
And I would want to strongly disassociate UPND from the video that we are talking about. What PF is doing is that among themselves, they could even be stage managing in any form of harassment, violence. No.
Political tension has been high between the UPND and the PF, which led to the losing of many lives during the just ended general elections. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Republican President Hakainde Hichilema has noted that the COVID-19 has slowed down the progress on meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. In his statement to the United Nations General Assembly, President Hichilema says the situation is worse for those in rural areas. He has since called for leveraging of resources for all member states to ensure that the goals are met.
We live in a changing and dynamic global environment in which countries are interdependent and collaborate with each other in finding solutions to emerging challenges such as climate change, the COVID-19 pandemic, terrorism, widening technological divide, and indeed illegal migration. Since the adoption of the SDGs in 2016, Zambia made its first voluntary national review in 2019 and presented some milestones. Progress towards meeting the goals of the 2030 agenda has, however, not been without challenges. Notable is the coming in of the coronavirus pandemic that has compounded the pre-existing vulnerabilities, inequalities in all spheres of the economy. The pandemic disrupted agricultural production and trade, supply chains as well. Further, the healthcare system and the provision of education system was gravely disrupted, especially in parts of the country with inadequate ICT solutions. While recognizing the need to enhance existing coordination, enhance efficiencies, improve targeting mechanisms, and efficient allocation of resources to deliver the desired results. It is therefore important that we leverage on our resources as a global community in order to enhance progress for achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals.
GEAR's Initiative Executive Director McDonald Chibenzi has defended the use of commercial airline by the Zambian Republican President Hakainde Hichilema on his working visit to the United States of America, saying it has been done in consultation with the security wings. Mr. Chibenzi says President Hichilema does not work in isolation and that he has a well-positioned state security who assessed the situation and proved beyond reasonable doubt that it is safe for the president to travel commercial. Mr. Chibenzi says if there were any dangers to the decision, the state security could have not allowed the president to travel using a commercial flight as he is state property. And Mr. Chibenzi states that the president promised the Zambian people that he will employ cost-saving mechanisms when he becomes president and that traveling commercial might be a mechanism to achieve this.
I believe that Zambia has got security men and women who are able to assess whether using that gadget was the best and that security, all the security that they need. I don't think that you can treat Zambia like a cantemba of a country. We are an established country, 56, 57 years of independence. We have our own intelligence system, we have our security system, we have the defense. All of them, they are fully functional. So with that, they have done their own due diligence and they feel that that is the best, all right? Because even if the president says, no, I want to use this war, they will tell you, no, this is not good. He has to abide by security details. And for us, I think we feel if there's insecurity, then you blame it on the security system in our country. So otherwise, we don't see anything bad with that. But again, I think you have heard him saying he wants to be cost-effective in the way he runs this country. So if that's what he's doing, is trying to fulfill what he promised. I mean, you have heard people saying, you have not fulfilled your promise on free education. Eh? So if today he uses the Gulfstream, he uses, the same people say, look, you have backtracked on your promise.
Civil society organizations in the country have challenged citizens not to be complacent in offering checks and balances to the United Party for National Development Administration. Zambia Council for Social Development Executive Director Leah Mitaba, who spoke on behalf of other CSOs, says citizens do not have to wait for the situation to deteriorate before they can begin to hold government accountable. Ms. Mitaba says the Patriotic Front administration created a shrinking civic space which President Hichilema has restored and should be used to offer reasonable criticism to the government.
Well, the country under the Patriotic Front administration witnessed a shrinking civic space with freedom of expression being put on a chopping block. The United Party for National Development UPND administration has promised to restore the dignity of freedom of expression in Zambia. This has cheered the civil society organizations who have since tasked the Zambian people to take advantage of the freedom to keep offering checks and balances to the new administration and not wait on the situation to deteriorate.
We don't want to get to the point where things deteriorate the way they did, and then that's when we begin to speak out. And in that view, we point to some concerns that already we have seen as civil society organizations. As concerned CSOs, we believe that not all is well, especially when we consider the recent cabinet appointments. For example, the number of women, youth, persons with disabilities and other minority groups that have been nominated is far less than we expected.
Despite the hostile political environment, the Patriotic Front administration was being kept in checks and balances because there was a strong opposition political party. The CSOs have since tasked political parties in the country to thrive to become organized, if possible form alliances so as to continue offering checks and balances to the new administration.
It will therefore take a serious, well-organized and coordinated political party or even another alliance to provide formidable checks and balances to the UPND alliance government. Opposition political parties should strive to have organized, strong, and consistent leadership to be able to build strategic alliances or coalitions with various sectors of society.
The CSOs have also implored the new administration to expedite the process of constitutional reforms so that the country introduces an election system that will avoid by-elections as they are a drain to national resources.
I'm concerned that the nullification of the petition election results may consequently result in by-elections, and the by-elections are a drain on the country's resources, and the resources that are used during by-elections can be channeled to needy and productive ventures. We thus implore the government to expedite the process of constitutional reforms so that the country should introduce an electoral system that avoids by-elections at all costs.
The CSOs have also commended the scrapping off of the Ministry of Religious Affairs, which they say did not live up to its standard.
It is sad and unacceptable that we have the church and the clergy for hire. It is against this background that we support the scrapping of the Ministry of National Guidance and Religious Affairs, as it was not only divisive, but failed to provide leadership in the country's moral and cultural development.
And the CSOs have called on government to pay immediate attention to the fight against corruption, conclude the constitutional reform by repealing and replacing the current constitution, address the plight of the youths who voted for change by having the Ministry of Youth become a standalone, clean the electoral environment by making the Electoral Commission of Zambia an independent entity, and address tribalism, among other things. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
The Biomedical Union of Zambia is demanding answers from the Ministry of Health over the sudden scrapping off of certain allowances for all health workers in the country. Speaking to Camnet TV, Union President Daniel Mwembe explains that the August 2021 payslips indicate that allowances such as the health shift allowance have been scrapped off for all health workers with no explanation. Mr. Mwembe states that the Ministry of Health should be wary about making sudden changes to the salaries of health workers without any communication, as this could lead to unnecessary commotion in the health sector.
But for them to go ahead and scrap off, it is very, very disappointing. And we want to appeal to government. We want to call on them seriously to immediately, and we say immediately, reinstate this particular allowance before our members start going into streets and calling on government to do that. We want to earnestly appeal. Let them quickly reinstate that allowance on the pay slips, and let our members get paid this allowance, or else we are giving them an ultimatum that it should not cross over to next month. Let this allowance be paid to all those who it has been scrapped off from. And we know this can be done. We know that can be done. We know how the debt swap was done. This can be done. It is not too late. Let PEMIC reinstate this allowance on the pay slips for our people, and let them be paid. Otherwise, it is going just to start giving room for a lot of animosity in the system. We do not want this to cross over to next month. Let it be paid this month, and we will not allow them to go ahead and scrap off.
The Lusaka Water and Sanitation Company has been given 30 days ultimatum to address grievances of its workers. Government has urged the Lusaka, the water utility company, to address its workers within this period. This follows a recent Down Tools protest by the said company's unionized workers. And the workers' union representative, Moses Mwale, has commended the Minister of Water, Mike Mposha, for intervening in the situation.
Following the recent Tools Down protest by the Lusaka water and sanitation workers, Saturday, September 19, 2021, the protest, in which the union demanded for consolidated salaries and proper working equipment, Minister of Water and Sanitation Mr. Mike Mposha has today given a 30 days ultimatum to Lusaka Water and Sanitation Company to address the matter, in which he says should be done systematically and in closed doors. Mr. Mposha says this during a familiarized program held Monday morning in Lusaka.
Let's work with the media, but I think let's resolve most of these issues in our boardrooms. We should only get to the media as a last resort. I don't think that we can build these entities, these companies, by all the time trying to put pressure by going to the media and beginning to put demands through the media before exhausting our internal engagements. I hope that in the next 2 weeks, MD, with your team, we can sit down. I'll engage your union. I'll also engage your management to ensure that we put our heads together and see where we are having problems, and hopefully within the next 30 days we can resolve these issues. So since the issue is already in public domain, I want to assure the public that there will be no strike action which will be entertained, because I feel that all of us can sit together and resolve these issues.
And the Zambia Water and Sanitation Engineering and Allied Workers Union has commended government for a swift intervention. Mr. Moses Mwale is the union chairperson.
During its familiarization tour this morning, the minister has promised to address the workers' concern within 2 weeks, through a closed-door meeting with management and the union within 2 weeks. He also reminded management not to turn a deaf ear to the workers' issues, because they're an important stakeholder in the company. Therefore, we are appealing to our members to remain calm and continue working as we await this meeting that should arrive at a win-win situation, as the minister has indicated. Further, we wish to assure our members that we shall present their issues diligently. We also want to thank our members for their solidarity and unity during these difficult times.
Meanwhile, LWSC Managing Director Mr. Jonathan Kampata, during the press briefing, says the company is committed to working with government in achieving its targets.
But at least government can confirm that they do come through to do the verifications of the debts, and then the payments are made as a lump sum. I think what is required is for the individual institutions to start also paying continuously. So I think we're grateful for the support we should receive from the government. In terms of staff, performance connections, There are 6. We're trying really hard to contain the staff costs. Non-revenue water is a problem we have, yes. And I think we're quite upon the ministry really. They're aware about the support which is due to come in terms of meters and so on. And I think that's something we put in the budget. We submit. This is not a problem only for Lusaka Water. I think all the utilities are really faced by that challenge. In terms of staff numbers, our establishment is at 877, we are at 748. Again, big man for cost containment. Water service coverage, we are at 22%.
Alex Chishimba, Camnet News, Lusaka.
The state has appealed against Lusaka Magistrates Court's decision to acquit Patriotic Front member CHISHIMBA KAMBWILI, his son, and 3 others who were accused of forgery and possession of property suspected to be proceeds of crime amounting to over 6 million kwacha, among other charges. Director of Public Prosecutions, Lilian Sioni, is challenging the acquittal on grounds that the High Court Judge Mwaka Mikalile was sitting at the time his principal resident magistrate erred at law when she held that grounds for suspecting that the money reasonably suspected to be proceeds of crime in possession of KAMBWILI had been watered down. On the 9th of September 2021, Justice Mikalile acquitted KAMBWILI, his son, Mwamona Engineering Technical Services, and 2 former ZRA employees. The prosecution failed to prove the allegations against them.
Almost 2 weeks after being acquitted by the court on allegation of forgery and possession of property suspected to be proceeds of crime amounting to over 6 million kwacha, Patriotic Front member CHISHIMBA KAMBWILI's acquittal is now being challenged by the state as they feel that the court erred in law when it set him free. On the 9th of September 2021, Mr. KAMBWILI, his son Mwamba, a company called Mwamona Engineering and Technical Services, and 2 former Zambia Revenue Authority employees, Musonda Lukwesa and Mulinga Kapilima, were acquitted by the magistrate court in all the 39 counts of different charges, among them forgery, uttering a false document, after 4 years of trial. Judge Mwaka Mikalile, who sat as principal magistrate, acquitted KAMBWILI and 4 others as the allegations against them failed to be proven beyond reasonable doubt, and further stated that during KAMBWILI's defense, he provided the court with evidence of his legitimate source of income, hence the charge of proceeds of crime failed to stand. The court also acquitted the 2 as they had authority to prepare the tax clearance certificate for Mwamona Engineering. However, the state, through the Director of Public Prosecution, has now appealed against the Lusaka's Magistrate Court decision to acquit Mr. KAMBWILI and 2 others. According to the state's ground of appeal filed before the Lusaka's Magistrate Court, it has argued that Justice Mwaka Mikalile erred in law when it acquitted Mr. KAMBWILI, Mwamona Engineering and Technical Services, and Ronald Kwesa, who is a former ZRA official, despite the weight of evidence on record, and further that the court erred when it held the grounds of suspecting that the money reasonably suspected to be proceeds of crime in possession of Mr. KAMBWILI relating to charges from count 5 to 39 had been watered down. However, the state, in its appeal against the acquittal, has not included Mr. KAMBWILI's son Mwamba and one of the former ZRA employees, Mary Kapilima. The court will soon hear the appeal. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
The National Democratic Congress Party faction, led by Saboyi Mbwela, has sued Joseph Akafumba and 8 others, seeking a declaration that the latter were expelled from the party, thus they should not masquerade as party members. In a statement of claim filed in the Lusaka High Court, the party Secretary General Charles Kawita wants an order of injunction stopping Akafumba, whether by himself, his servants or agents, from masquerading as members of the party after they were expelled.
Wrangles in the National Democratic Congress Party have continued to deepen, with the Saboyi Mbwela-led faction dragging the Akafumba faction to court, seeking an order of injunction stopping the other team from masquerading as party members. The party Secretary General Charles Kawita has cited Joseph Akafumba, Bridget Atanga, Chipoka Mlinga, George Sichula, Mwenya Msinga, Stephen Chewa, Emmanuel Malite, Kenneth Sianda, and Tama Toli as defendants in the case. In his statement of claim filed in the Lusaka High Court, Mr. Kawita states that on the 27th of February 2021, the party held a National General Council meeting where they tabled the use of misconduct and the breach of the party constitution of regulations by the defendant, and they were subsequently expelled from the party. He submits that the defendants have been holding meetings under the party's name despite being expelled, and that this has brought confusion in the party. Mr. Kawita now wants the Akafumba-led faction, which is in an alliance with the UPND, to stop posing as members of NDC on ground that they were expelled from the party. The plaintiff now seeks from the Lusaka High Court an order restraining Mr. Akafumba and 8 others, whether by themselves, agents or servant, from interfering in any of the operations of the party, and further a declaration that they were expelled from the party in accordance with the NDC constitution. The case continues. Miriam Kaimba reporting for Camnet TV News.
KCM liquidator Milingo Lungu refuses to meet the new mines minister. There's more after the break.
In our quest to serve nations and develop Africa, Savenda is investing in the agriculture sector so as to produce supply for both local and international markets, housing over 12,000 pullets that are nurtured and fed with our locally made stock feed that comes from our own locally grown maize and soya beans, all processed from our recently installed milling and mixing plant. Our over 95,000 layers have an output capacity of over 1,500 trays of fresh eggs per day that are carefully selected and packaged for all the leading stores and supermarkets nationwide. Our greenhouses are fitted with the latest irrigation system, and the seedlings are nurtured to ensure only healthy plants reach the fields. With our deliberate planting schedule, we are better placed to supply constantly without interruption, thus reliable. Savenda Farms is also changing lives of its dedicated workforce drawn from the local community and beyond. So the next time you think fresh and green, think Savenda Farms.
Africa is rising to a new dawn of integrity and accountability. Are you tired of being swindled or buying fake or illegal properties? Would you like to sell or buy genuine property? Would you like to list your property on both local and international market? Don't waste your time. Call the professionals, the SGK Properties, on +260 762 166 018. SGK Properties. Your business assurance is our priority.
Would you like to win some cool cash? Say no more. Stand a chance to win your share of 1 million kwacha. Simply make a transaction from your Zamtel mobile money account and you could be one of weekly winners of up to 10,000 kwacha. Be empowered with Zamtel mobile money. Dial *344# to activate your account. This promotion runs from 28th July to 31st October 2021. Zamtel, your digital lifestyle partner.
The Camnet October Conference is fast approaching. To participate in the forthcoming conference, you're required to book your seat by paying 750 kwacha per person per day. Date 1st and 2nd October 2021. Venue, the Healing Word Ministries International in Ibex Hill. Guest speakers include Professor Reda, Professor Munkumba, Mr. Nkuruma Kalaluka, Dr. Musonda, Dr. Sitima, Anthony from USA, Dr. Mwale, Honorable Bob Sichinga, Elias Bondela, and your hosts, Pastors Victoria and Moses Chiluba.
You can also participate via Zoom at 300 kwacha per day.
Make your payments through mobile money. For MTN, 096 296 5883. For Airtel, 097 975 3010. Our banking details are 913-00182-5325. Stanbic Bank, Kablonga branch.
For those living abroad, make payments via World Remit. The deadline for payments will be 28 September 2021. Any late payment made after 28 September will attract a penalty fee of 200 kwacha per person.
Welcome back. You're still watching Camnet News. Thank you for staying on. Konkola Copper Mines KCM Provisional Liquidator MILINGO LUNGU has failed to avail himself at a meeting he was expected to confer with Minister of Mines Paul Kabuswe in Kitwe Monday. Speaking when he addressed management at Konkola Copper Mines in Chingola, the minister says the behavior by Mr. Lungu is unacceptable and will not be tolerated in the New Dawn administration. The minister says the mining sector is in a mess and needs urgent cleaning, which can only be achieved if management at the mine opens up to the government. He has since tasked management to ensure that they report all the happenings at the mines regardless of how shady the deals have been.
It's unacceptable. We must never, ever bring politics in the private sector. The behavior of the liquidator, I know, is unacceptable. I expected him to be here. I'm very disappointed that he's not here, because part of the mess that we are in is because of that liquidation process. So we need to clean this. It is just that things are in court, and I may not delve so much into it, but the politicization of this, of KCM, I think just went overboard. It's unacceptable. It's not the way we are supposed to make. People must learn to have integrity. The way suppliers were being paid and contractors is unacceptable. We must clean the mess, CEO. I am equal to the task, and that's why I want us to be forthright. I want us to make sure that you tell me how ugly the situation is, because if we don't, we are going to risk the lives of miners. As government, we have come in to bring sanity to the mining industry.
Government, through the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, has targeted to supplement at least 10% of economic development using natural resources. Addressing the media Monday, Minister in charge of Green Economy, Collins Nzovo, says there is urgent economic development need in areas which are ecologically affected.
Ecological sustainable development can be achieved partially through the use of protective principle if there are threats of serious or permanent environmental damage. Present generation should ensure that the health, diversity, and productivity of the environment is maintained or enhanced for the benefit of future generations. That said, Ministry of Green Economy and Environment wishes to reach 10% of the nation's economic development through the use of natural resources.
How we want to develop the country. We are currently developing the country at a very low rate. Our aim is to reach 10% economic development, and in doing this, we are very clear that we use a lot of our natural resources. You may recall that the whole world is going green. The 2030 agenda has been agreed upon. Not 2030, this is 2021. We're remaining only 8 years to see if we can ensure that the 17 SDGs are realized.
Minister of Green Economy and Environment, Collins Nzovo, says economic development will help alleviate poverty in the country.
We appreciate your help. In doing all these things, we want to ensure that the institutional framework for the new ministry, the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, is supported. There will be a lot of projects we'll be doing, and obviously in doing all of the projects, environmental sustainability issues will be key. We realize that we live in a global world. Sweden and Zambia are in the same planet. What happens here affects what happens in Sweden. What happens in Sweden affects what happens here. issues of...
And Sweden Vice Minister of International Development Cooperation said when she paid courtesy call on the minister that the bettering of the environment must include youth engagement.
That really after. And so it's important with youth engagement, and also many youth and youth organizations are really into the question of climate change and biodiversity loss. And so therefore, as a Sweden and a Swedish representative, I'm very happy to hear that this is also one of your most prioritized questions.
Blessings Shakwila, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Southern Province Minister Cornelius Moitwa has cautioned public workers from inflating figures in the procurement processes. Mr. Moitwa says they must ensure that 3 pillars are followed. Among them, procure at the correct price as instructed by the head of state, President Hakainde Hichilema. The provincial minister was speaking Monday when he met provincial heads of government departments on their expectations with regards to procurement of goods, as well as the anticipated 3 pillars to adhere to. Meanwhile, Provincial Deputy Permanent Secretary Kennedy Mubanga has assured the minister that the technocrats' support towards achieving government's vision.
That if at your farm you are procuring a borehole for 20,000 kwacha at your farm, that must still be the same price at the office when you are procuring a borehole on behalf of the people. He has said under his administration, there shall be no inflation of prices, there shall be no deception. Pillar number 2, His Excellency has emphasized that once you have acquired these goods and services on this procurement chain, there must be quality assurances in order to attain value for money. That the amount of money having been appropriated for a particular goods and services must reflect the value that that money represents. This is in line with His Excellency's vision to decentralize and devolve power from the center of Lusaka to the provinces, the districts, and the constituencies.
Heads of departments stand ready to support you all the way so that you deliver according to your mandate and also the expectation of His Excellency, the President, and in line with the United Party for National Development Manifesto, whose agenda is to accelerate the transformation of the economy by advancing value addition, industrialization, and integrations into the global markets through economic transformation program.
In Petauke, Central Member of Parliament Emmanuel Banda has called on the people from all sectors of society to bring forth their ideas and resources in order to attain a common agenda of developing the constituency. Mr. Banda says the constituency will only become the envy of many if all stakeholders come together and contribute their effort in developing the area. He says all sectors are important in attaining the developmental aspirations of the constituency, hence the need to coexist. The Petauke lawmaker was speaking in Petauke Sunday.
Muno Petauke Centro Monse, Panchito ya Buino, yeti sevenzela pamosi. Popanda moyo, nusu alini kuti napana semena panama. Koma ni mpempeni kuti, mpingo na ofisi yangu, mweti sevenzela tena ni mkampeni, nalomba hapa tieti sevenze sotiana. Bambo fumu no mpempani, kuti tewana wanu kampeni ya sila lomba, tileteni pamosi. Kuti vilabate nzolonjeza wantu, tiwasevenzele. Tisaikepo kuti uyu enze panama pachipani chini, uwe panama palichi chipani chichi yai. Kumalomba, ndawe niyonze kupezi kawo wina umozi. Tikasevenzele pamozi, nuziwa nishi vantu tiwapase vila batenzo walongeza na vantu angaleli ni mavuto nishitabachosa mavuto.
Tifukatabi kawili tifuna kuti mpingo pamozi ni mafumu yatu tisebenzere pamozi tifuka tonse titumikira antu amozi. Ise tilonjeza ngati mpingo tisebeza na boma yomwe ilipo mcholinga chakuti titukule dera latu komanso moyo wa bantu mudera limene titumikira kupite pasogolo.
You're still watching Camnet News. We take another set of commercials. When we return, we look at sports and international news. Stay with us.
At Savenda Express Printing, we have the capacity to deliver quality in all kinds of printing services timely. Our lines of production include screen printing, embroidery, lithography, and large format printing. We take pride in delivering quality work at very competitive rates with our in-house, highly experienced and qualified designers. With the ability to print full color and embossing prints, our state-of-the-art screen printing machines are able to print 1,000 pieces per hour. Our embroidery machines are able to print any logo with 1 or up to 12 colors all at once and has an output capacity of 100 pieces per hour. Savenda Express Printing also does large format printing for billboards, banners, vinyl, car stickers, posters, tire covers, cups, pens, bags, flasks, packaging boxes, and well, just anything that can need printing. For inquiries, give us a call on 0960 344 471.
Your skin is the biggest muscle in your body. That's why we make sure that Oracle is #1 when it comes to taking care of your precious skin. Oracle Pure Petroleum Jelly and Glycerin soothes, moisturizes, and keeps your skin perfect. Oracle Pure Petroleum products for that perfect skin.
The Camnet October Conference is fast approaching. To participate in the forthcoming conference, you're required to book your seat by paying 750 kwacha per person per day. Date 1st and 2nd October 2021. Venue The Healing Word Ministries International in Ibex Hill. Guest speakers include Professor Reda, Professor Munkumba, Mr. Nkuruma Kalaluka, Dr. Musonda, Dr. Sitima, Anthony from USA, Dr. Mwale, Honorable Bob Sichinga, Elias Bondela, and your hosts, Pastors Victoria and Moses Chiluba.
You can also participate via Zoom at 300 kwacha per day.
Make your payments through mobile money. For MTN, 096 296 5883. For Airtel, 097 975 3010. Our banking details are 913 000 182 5325. Stanbic Bank, Kablonga Branch.
For those living abroad, make payments via Wild Remit. The deadline for payments will be 28 September 2021. Any late payment made after 28 September will attract a penalty fee of 200 kwacha per person.
Thank you for staying on. Paul Rusesabagina, one-time hotel manager portrayed as a hero in a Hollywood film about the nation's 1994 genocide, was found guilty of being part of the group responsible for terrorist attacks and sentenced to 25 years in prison by a Rwandan court. Rusesabagina boycotted Monday's verdict after declaring he did not expect justice in a trial he called a sham. In other news, still on the global front, hundreds of Haitians who had been hoping to find refuge in the U.S. have been sent back home to Port-au-Prince. The U.S. is operating up to 8 flights a day and send migrants camped at the Texas town on the border of Mexico. Let's look at a roundup of international stories.
We start with that breaking news, and a court in Kigali has sentenced the man whose life inspired the Hollywood film Hotel Rwanda to 25 years in prison on terrorism charges. Paul Rusesabagina is credited with sheltering and saving hundreds of people during the country's genocide in 1994, but he fell out with the president. Let's go straight away to Kigali. Malcolm Webb, our correspondent, standing by there. Malcolm, tell us more. What's been happening?
Well, the judges have been reading out their judgments in this courthouse for the last 6 hours, and they've just got to the verdicts, and they said just a short while ago that Rusesabagina is guilty of the various terror-related charges that he was facing, and that he has been sentenced to 25 years in jail. Along with 20 co-accused around him have also been found guilty of various charges and given jail sentences, but lesser jail sentences. But Rusesabagina himself isn't in the courtroom there. He refused to turn up, and he's done so for the last 6 months of court hearings because he said this trial wasn't fair. That's something that's been echoed by international observers as well. So he hasn't attended any of these hearings, and his supporters, including his daughter, who we spoke to a short while ago, completely rejected this trial. They say it's not legitimate at all.
What recourse might Rusesabagina have, or is that it? Is there any room for appeal here?
Yeah, there is a possibility for the prosecution or for the defence to appeal this judgment within 15 days. We don't know if Rusesabagina or his lawyers intend to do that. I mean, they've rejected this entire process by virtue of not turning up, so we don't know if they're going to engage with it from here on. But the other criticisms of the process by international observers have included the fact that the evidence submitted, and there was some evidence that Rusesabagina had been involved with opposition groups and some armed groups, but they said that evidence was never actually evaluated in the court, that key witnesses weren't allowed to be cross-examined by the defence, and so legal experts had said that any verdict that came out of here would lack credibility in whatever the case.
All right, Malcolm, thanks for that. Malcolm Webb there in Kigali on that guilty verdict.
This is how one US Border Patrol officer received Haitian migrants crossing the Rio Grande, coming back with food to a camp they've set up in Texas.
Hey, you use your women? This is why your country because you use your women for this. You go, no, that way. Hey, no, listen, no. No.
We've got our families inside, dying of hunger. We've had to go out to buy food.
You can see the tense scenes here. The Border Patrol are trying to stop people getting back into the camp after they went across to Mexico to get food, they say, because there isn't enough food for them actually there in the camp.
There's more than 12,000 migrants, mostly Haitians, in the camp that sprung up in Del Rio, Texas, over the last 2 weeks. They want asylum, but US authorities are overwhelmed. This is just the latest flashpoint in a months-long surge of people illegally crossing the border, and there's little in the camp for them.
Sanitary products? There aren't any. Food? There isn't any either. They don't give you anything.
We met Nicholas on the Mexican bank of the river, searching for food and medicine for his family. He hadn't realized until we asked him about it that US authorities are also now flying Haitians back home.
There's planes now going deporting people. What do you think about that?
What kills me about that is that everyone knows what we Haitians are going through. There's no president. Crime is high. Students can't go to school. There's no work. The economy is down. People can't put up with that. Deportation is not good for us.
Like many others, he said he'd suffered to get this far, on a journey through South America, past gangs and through a patch of jungle called the Darien Gap, notorious for rape and robbery. It was really difficult. I saw a lot of us who died, he told me. Now he's touched ground in his promised land, the US, but it looks unlikely he'll be able to stay there. In the rush for food, we didn't see him make it back across the river into Texas. And by the afternoon, Mexican security forces were patrolling the river too. It was getting even tougher.
Mexican authorities have opened the dam further upstream, which they do quite regularly, but all it means is that these people are now struggling even more to get across. The water's a lot deeper here. It's just another obstacle and another danger for them as they try and get into the United States. John Holman, Al Jazeera, Acuna.
That's it for international news. We now look at sports news. The National Sports Council of Zambia says it is unfortunate that the national deaf football team did not travel for the first ever African Deaf CAF Championship. In an interview with Camnet Sports, the association acting general secretary Raphael Molenga says the reason as to why the program failed was because of inadequate preparations.
In response to the National Deaf Football Association failing to travel for the first ever Deaf Football Championship, the National Sports Council of Zambia says it is unfortunate that the team failed to travel due to lack of resources. Camnet Sports caught up with the association acting general secretary Raphael Molenga, who disclosed that they did not prepare enough for the tournament.
Together didn't prepare adequately in terms of resources. And by the end of the day, the resources which are put together by the government through the National Sports Council of Zambia still was inadequate. This is despite that the National Sports Council considered that was a special group and gave them more than they give to any other sporting federation. Yeah. So we discussed that issue that we need to get well organized so that next time we'll be able to put resources together.
Molenga has since asked the team not to get discouraged as the nation will make certain that they participate in other tournaments ahead of the African Deaf Championship.
Of the fact that we are coming out of the COVID-19 situation where a lot of sectors were affected, including the corporate. Sometimes we have received support from the corporate to supplement our effort, but every corporate was complaining because of the COVID situation. So it has been a very hard period, and we look forward to doing better next time. So we shall continue to work with the executive and make sure that we put equitable resources together to fulfill programs like the one which was not undertaken.
Measures should really be put in place by the National Sports Council of Zambia to avoid the team missing out next time. Blessings Chakwila, Camnet Sports, Lusaka.
Well, that's where we wrap it up for our news this evening. The headlines once again. KCM liquidator MILINGO LUNGU refuses to meet the new mines minister. The Patriotic Front accuses the police of unfair treatment against its members. CHISHIMBA KAMBWILI back in court barely a week after being acquitted. In international news, Hotel Rwanda hero given 25-year sentence in a terrorism case. And in sports news, the national deaf football team's failure to attend the first ever international sporting activity regrettable. We now look at the Camnet verse of the day, and it's coming from 1 Peter verse 5 to 6 and 7, and it reads, Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that he may exalt you at a proper time, casting all your care on him, because he cares about you. Well, that's all we had for you on the desk this evening. Thank you so much for choosing us. My name is Sharon Kalimbula. Keep watching Camnet TV. Good night.